let's just look at. I mean, well, one way to ask it: am I better off getting 1,000 links or 5 if I get the right ones? So let's take on that topic area. So whoever wants to go first, I'll take volunteers. Tim, you're not muted at the moment. Maybe you got Dixon and Rand stepped backwards and you were left in front, so you became the volunteer.
Well, I think we've already covered like almost everything about the authority of a link, because like too many factors are in play there. And actually, Rand started talking about the machine learning and artificial intelligence, and I'm pretty sure that Google is moving into the direction where they will just feed tons of information about different link factors to this machine learning algorithm. And on this huge scale that Google can operate, they will just try to figure out like what is the best way to determine the value of a link. But again, I will go back to the basics. Links from authority sites, link from the content as opposed to like in footer or anywhere else. Links that are surrounded by text that is relevant to where the link is pointing to. These are all the basics pretty much. And actually, again, back to this machine learning, I think none of us is really expert in Yandex. But I read an article that there are kind of rumors that Yandex engineers are doing like huge tests with machine learning, and they basically go to SEO conferences to see what SEOs talk about, like experiments with their algorithm, because they rely on machine learning so much. So I think Google is really investing there. So in the next few years, this is what we're going to see. But yeah, again, in terms of authority of a link, the authority of the website, the authority of the page, where the link is coming from, and if this link will bring any real visitors to a website. So this is like the big picture.
You're right, but with that in mind, then, am I better off getting a small number of authoritative links?
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Yeah, okay. So I should get 5 authority links rather than a few hundred average links, right?
Yeah, and also let's not forget about the concept of trust, where this notion that trusted sites tend to link to trusted sites. So the further you go in this chain of links from a trusted site, the less value link brings to you. This is especially important for those private blog networks, because often they consist of like low quality sites that don't get many trust from these like big authority sites. So again, this is why again Google is getting better and better at filtering out these low quality links that don't bring any value to the table.
Dixon, you look ready to talk. You've unmuted yourself.
Well, yeah. So there's another way of looking at the Google algorithm, and it's something that they seem to have been working towards. There's a really good paper. Actually, there's a really good video out there somewhere on YouTube about Google looking at entity search as opposed to web pages. So we as SEOs think a lot about our website as the destination, but I think Google has, with their semantic search and through the years, they've been subtly changing their model based around the artificial intelligence and saying artificial intelligence has to build up concepts about ideas. So let's say that we're going to sort of take Stone Temple Consulting. Then the idea of Stone Temple is a concept now, and not necessarily a website. So that manifests itself in Eric, in your personalities, in the events that you do, the PowerPoint presentations you go out there, the consulting that you turn up to, or if you take that on to Lady Gaga, it's her, not her. It's her conferences, her gigs, it's her app, it's her latest single, it's all the other bits and pieces. So the database is now not necessarily using the website as the point of final say, which then can manifest itself into telling you the weather tomorrow, or telling you your flight from London to Munich, or whatever it may be. And we're still hung up on, we are all hung up, and our businesses rely a little bit on the fact that people are going to come to our websites and we're going to do business on the website. But of course, businesses are not built on websites; they're built on brands, built on business ideas that transcend just the website. And increasingly, that was a very clever strategy, I think, for Google, if that's what they are doing, because links are still important. And to the answer to the question is, the 5 links or the 5,000 links, firstly, you've got to get to the point where Google understands what the hell you are. And once it's done that, then you don't want to get 5,000 links that try and suggest that you're something else. You need to carry on reinforcing that message through. So 5 links is great, as long as they're 5 links that reinforce what you believe you are as a business, as an idea. So entity search, I think, is important. I think if anybody got into Freebase before it all went out, they were lucky. I didn't, unfortunately. But I think that was an interesting playground for Google, for them to get a seed set of entities. And I think that we've probably seen a lot there that we may have missed as SEOs, or some of us may have missed as SEOs. But basically, until we've got an identity in Google's mindset, it's quite hard for us to then expand on that. That's my take, and I may be wrong.
So if I just could paraphrase that briefly, if you look at how you as an entity fit in the ecosystem of your market space, you need to manage that process more effectively than your competition to win.
Yeah, I'll say I think that fits better into marketing strategy, and doesn't take away from the importance of links at all. But it means that links now become more contextually or more metaphorically important. In a different sense, they become important. They're still about relationships.
All right, I'm going to take a controversial stand on this one, which is, if you were to offer me 5 links from high authority websites versus 5,000 links from low authority websites, right now, today, I'm not saying long term, but right now, today, I would take the 5,000, because I think Google is going in all these directions, where they are, focusing on the authority, they're focusing on the entity, and semantically and contextually trying to figure out a brand. And I think there's great points to be made about, when you are proactively link building, you want to get links that reinforce that. However, right now, today, Google is still fairly susceptible. In fact, I'm going to say strongly susceptible to a large number of links coming from a diverse set of websites, even when they're pretty small sites with not a lot of authority. So long as we're not talking about pure spam here, right? Stuff that's going to get you caught in Google's web spam filter. I will take, a link from the sidebar of, Mary's real estate website in Enumclaw, Washington, that has 20 visits a month, right? And those types of links can still move the needle in a way that surprises a lot of SEOs, because I think that when we get to conferences and events, when we're making presentations, we do talk about the fact that here's the kind of link building that you should do proactively, and here's the kind of links that move the needle best. But it is in fact true still that a lot of small links from small websites can significantly boost your rankings, even if they're not particularly contextually relevant, and even if they are not from important pages. So long as they're not spam, you're still in a positive place. I don't know. You guys disagree with me? That's,
And there were questions, I think you guys wanted to talk about the coreness or the core ranking algorithm and that sort of stuff. And then again, we went a little bit back and forth with Gary on what are we even talking about here. And I guess, so there's 2 things. First of all, there's a metaphor that is not mine, but I will borrow it happily from Gary, about cars. And at first I didn't understand it, but bear with me. That parts of the engine apparently were not always part of the engine. And the example he gave me was the starter. It used to be a big external stick that you plugged into the front of the car and then you twisted it. And now younger viewers will have no idea what I'm talking about, but believe me, watch some older movies. But then eventually, spark plugs, everything, it just came and became part of the engine and is now under the hood and nobody even knows how it works. So if you want to think about what's core and what's not core for us, the analogy would be something like this. It's less about the functionality of the thing, which probably doesn't change that much over time. It's more about how we perceive it in the context of the algorithm itself. As in, do we still think, oh, this is an experimental thing that's been running for a while and we're still not sure how long it's going to last? Or is it, yeah, obviously, it's like PageRank. It's at the heart of it. It's always going to be there, at least in the foreseeable future. And therefore, we might call it, in certain contexts, core part of the algorithm. As for the updates, back to your original question. And I think this has been going on in an interesting circle between Hangouts that we do and then conferences that Gary does and then Hangouts that John does and then questions get asked, answered, and then they get re-asked with a slightly different answer. I'll take a stab at a canonical one and then see if we still have to modify that again. But that's the way I see it. So, and you will understand, and obviously I hope most of our users will be very comfortable with this description as well. We have, on the one hand, the big launches. So somebody sits down, a team of engineers sits down, writes up a whole bunch of code, runs some tests, sees how that affects a sample of results, how they compare to each other. Are they better? Are they worse? They get some stats back on that. Then they go to the launch committee and say, look, I mean, if we do this thing, our results will be so much better. This is the percentage change, this is the happy users and all that stuff. The launch committee goes, okay, fair enough. What are the losses? What are the gains? Sounds good, let's launch this. And that would be something like what Penguin was, what Panda was. Somebody sat down, wrote this huge chunk of code that was going to make a huge difference. That code, right, and that's a big change, that's a big launch. That's something we could talk about. That code is not necessarily static after that. It might not change for years. No one might touch it for a really long time. Or on the contrary, it might be something that engineers will keep submitting change lists for every week to be tweaking little things. How do you treat that? If somebody goes in and tweaks one line of code among thousands of lines of code, is that an update? Is that a launch? What is that? It does go through approvals. There are people who look at each other's change lists. There's a quality check procedure in place. How do we qualify that? If somebody tweaks that little thing, is that Penguin been updated every day? Or do we wait until 5 lines of code have been changed, or 55, or 500? So that makes it more difficult to talk about it in those terms, because small incremental changes like that may or may not happen to different elements of the code simultaneously, separately, as you well know. And you can imagine any machine system would be exactly the same. And then the third part of it is the data collected by these algorithms and processed by them. Primarily the URLs, the websites, and maybe some additional meta information around that. Our primary way of acquiring information about the web is crawling, right? So there's crawler bots out there, Google bots that fetch, render, help index. There are systems which use that. There are systems which might go and look for something themselves. There are systems that would go and talk to the results of what we fetch continuously. There are those that would do it less regularly. And the same system might do it at different intervals, depending on different conditions. What this means, for example, is that imagine we have a bunch of URLs affected by Penguin. So it's a list. Parts of that list will not change for a very long time. Parts of that list might change much more often. Parts of them will change because we crawled those URLs again. Parts of them will change because Penguin decided that it's time to see if this is still relevant or something else has changed that triggered the need to revisit a page. So, at least in my head, this picture is reasonably straightforward and clear. Like there's a lot of moving parts, and here's how they move. But as a result, talking about monthly updates or weekly updates or even yearly updates becomes, to me at least, less meaningful. Because you're not really sure what are you talking about, and at the end of the day, what you, I suppose, care about the most is a particular URL, is a particular site right now still affected by the issues that led to the application of a particular algorithm in the first place.
So if we back up a little bit, the notion of core, it seems like at a very high level, we could say that it's considered core when, well, it has something to do with the level of internal acceptance of the stability of an algorithm. Is that fair to say? So
yeah, the way he described it was easy. Once they've forgotten how it works, it's core.
That's exactly right.